the suspense. Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you. My name is Charlie Carroll. I'm the founding pastor here at City Church, where our purpose is to help people experience the fullness of God's love through relationship. Thank you for being here, and thank you for joining us wherever you are joining us from this morning. I thought we would get started with like a quiz or a test. And when I was in school, my favorite quizzes or tests were true or false, because it gave me a 50% chance, at least in my mind, of getting something right. When you got into the Scantron tests with all the little dots, it got really dicey for me. We are living in unprecedented times. Just this morning, there's a new round of calls for impeaching our president. A lot of you watched the news this past week and are aware of all of the tension and the unprecedented historical times in which we are all living. And I'm sure you have felt some of the anxiety and worry as we've walked through this. One of the things that I would like to draw your attention to is 2 Timothy 3. And one of the things that I've realized over the years is just because it's a surprise to me does not mean it's a surprise to everyone, especially the Lord. And when you look at 2 Timothy 3, we are told that in the last days, perilous times or stressful times, or here in the English Standard Version, it says that it will be times of difficulty. And so that's why it is so important that we stay connected to the Lord. We hear the Lord's word, and the Lord's voice is the loudest voice in our life because it's the most accurate voice. And so there's something about being told in advance as to how things are going to be that can give you comfort to get through that period of time. So these are things that we were told. It just says that, but understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty. See if this sounds like today. Verse 2. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness, but denying its power. And so there's something about a teacher or a good leader that really lets the people that are following them know what's ahead, so that when you get there, you have more confidence knowing that you were told in advance, and therefore your trust in that leader or that person can grow. And so the Lord gives us his word and speaks to us and tells us things in advance, so that when we go through them, we can calm down and understand that this is a part of that. We were told that in the last days, people would really be lovers of themselves, and in that case, when that happens, all of this other stuff unfolds. True or false, you can text your answers to this. I like shoes, and I think a lot of you know that. And I thought that just for fun, like, let's take this test. You can text your answers to my number, 937-303-4788. It will ask you to verify your number because the texting service that I use does that. But you're going to give me an answer to these 7 questions. It won't really take you that long. I'm going to ask them, but you can text your answers and your shoe size to this number. And then I'm just going to pick somebody that gets the most answers right, and I'm going to send you a pair of shoes that I want to pick out for you. And we'll see how my taste is. And this goes for you too on Facebook. You can text your answers to this number, 937-303-4788. I don't know why you wouldn't participate. And just text me your answers. Here's the first question. This is true or false. I'm giving you a 50% chance on each one. Number 1, our God is not the God of this world. True or false? Our God is not the God of this world. True or false? If you're not participating, don't be a poopy pants. Come on. Number 2, God chooses world leaders. True or false? God chooses world leaders. All you're doing is texting me your answers. This will be on tape, so if you have to go back and figure something out, that's fine. 3, the kingdoms of this world all come to an end. True or false? 4, we are called pilgrims, sojourners, and aliens, meaning this world is not our home. Number 4, we are pilgrims, sojourners, aliens. This world is not our home. Number 5, true or false, we, you and I, are supposed to be the light of the world. You are the light of the world. You are the light of the world, true or false. Number 6, God's arm is not too short to save. This is out of Isaiah. God's arm is not too short to save, true or false. Last but not least, and again, we'll give this to the end of the day for you to get your answers in. Don't forget to send me your shoe size. Number 7, God works all things together for good when we're called according to his purpose. God works all things together for good when we are called according to his purpose. 7 questions, true or false. We're going to take the people that get the most answers right. We're going to put their name in a hat, maybe a shoe, and we're going to draw a name and then send you some pair of shoes. Who knows what they will be? True or false? And I think as you work through these questions, you should start to gain some of your confidence back in the days in which we are living. And if it is true that we are the light of the world and we are the city that's on a hill, then it's important that we get it right, that we understand where our hope is and where our sense of peace rests, which is really what I want to talk about as we jump into our content for this week. In John 16:33, it says, "In this godless world you will continue to experience difficulties, but take heart, I've conquered the world." That was Jesus. Revelation 1:9, John says, "Your brother and partner in the tribulation and the kingdom." And I bring these verses up on purpose just to remind us that we were told a long time ago what these days would look and feel like. That we're to take heart. That the Lord has overcome these things. And because the Lord has overcome these things and we understand that and we live in a way that demonstrates that, we can be the light of the world. Last week we kicked off this new series entitled Unlearn. And we were talking about the importance of unlearning certain things if you are going to learn what God has for you to learn today. That unlearning is a very important part of learning. I scratched my head at this. God has made all of these promises to us, right? John chapter 10, verse 10, that he came to give us abundant life. Ephesians chapter 3, that he can do more than we can even imagine. And yet so many of us have settled for or become okay with a life that doesn't look anything like what God has promised. And so if that's the case, then we have to make a decision as to whether or not God's a liar or somehow we have learned something that is not serving us. And just where my mind naturally goes is if I'm not experiencing a lot of what God promised I would experience over an extended period of time, it means that I need to unlearn something. That if what I have learned about God, theology, ology, the study of, theos, God, if what I have learned about the Lord doesn't match up with what he has promised I should experience, it means I need to unlearn something. And unlearning is scary because then it makes us consider everything. But the truth of the matter is we should all be okay because everything is out of our control. A lot of things appear to be under our control, but a lot and most things are out of our control. And so we're given this invitation to build a life and live a life that is by faith, that trusts the Lord's character in light of what we don't know, what feels uncertain, what we can't see. I don't know who told you that life is under your control. It's not. Things can change in a moment. Our community knows this with what we've experienced with Nancy and Tony here recently and their son. Life can change like that. But our confidence is to be in the Lord, and so when things aren't lining up with what he has promised, you need to unlearn something. And the only reason we will not unlearn something is because of fear and pride, that we don't want to change. We think we understand something. Last week we said without faith, expectations become limitations. Your expectations will always fall short of what the Lord has for you. Now, faith can get your expectations to rise, but you were made, your biology was made to live with a strong sense of hope and optimism, that you wake up each and every day excited about your life because God is in control. You don't know how things are going to work out. You just can live into or believe the promises that God has made over your life. And so when we don't live a life of faith, our expectations become limitations because they are driven by our mind and what we can understand. God wants you to be excited about your life. God wants you to wake up with a sense of excitement that He's in control. That God did not send His Son to die on your behalf and pay the most expensive price so that you could get really, really excited about everything that you could engineer and drum up in your own world through your own relationships or your own business. If you're looking for your own business or your own opportunities or the things that you're creating in your relationships to keep you happy, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. They are vehicles. They are a means to an end, but the end is living into, by faith, what God has for you. Most of you know that I am involved with and run a company that works on protection and security. And over the last 20 years, we've had one or two times where someone has committed the unpardonable sin, and that is falling asleep on the job. When you are in security of any level, you cannot fall asleep. You are there to protect someone else's life, and when you fall asleep, it is immediate termination. There is no forgiveness for it, and you're told that in advance. This morning, we're going to be in Acts chapter 16. We're going to start in verse 16, where a security guard falls asleep. And he's so upset about it because in those days, you weren't terminated. Well, you were terminated, but it was your life. And so we're going to jump into Acts 16:16, and I want to show you what this has to do with peace and why peace is so important in the day in which we live, and how your peace has a lot to do with being that light that God said you are to be, or that city that God said we are to be, that is up on a hill for others to see. Starting in verse 16, this is reading out of the Message Bible. It says, one day, this is the Apostle Paul, one day on our way to the place of prayer, a slave girl ran into us. She was a psychic, and with her fortune-telling, made a lot of money for people who owned her. She started following Paul around, calling everyone's attention to us by yelling out, "These men are working for the Most High God." This is Luke writing. "They're laying out the road of salvation for you." She did this for a number of days until Paul, finally fed up with her, turned and commanded the spirit that possessed her, "Out in the name of Jesus Christ, get out of her." And it was gone, just like that. When her owners saw that their lucrative little business was suddenly bankrupt, they went after Paul and Silas, roughed them up, and dragged them into the market square. Then the police arrested them, pulled them into a court with the accusation, "These men are disturbing the peace, dangerous Jewish agitators subverting our Roman law and order." By this time, the crowd had turned into a restless mob out for blood. Sounds like this week's news our headlines. The judges went along with the mob, had Paul and Silas' clothes ripped off, and ordered a public beating. After beating them black and blue, they threw them into jail, telling the jailkeeper to put them under heavy guard so that there would be no chance of escape. He did just that, threw them into the maximum security cell in the jail, and clamped leg irons on them. Along about midnight, Paul and Silas were at prayer and singing a robust hymn to God. The other prisoners couldn't believe their ears. Then, without a warning, a huge earthquake. The jailhouse tottered. Every door flew open. All the prisoners were loose. Startled from sleep, the security guard saw all the doors swinging loose on their hinges. Assuming that all the prisoners had escaped, he pulled out his sword and was about to do himself in, figuring he was as good as dead anyway, when Paul stopped him. "Don't do that. We're all still here. Nobody's run away." The jailer got a torch and ran inside. Badly shaken, he collapsed in front of Paul and Silas. He led them out of the jail and asked, "Sirs, what do I have to do to be saved, to really live?" They said, "Put your entire trust in the Master Jesus. Then you'll live as you were meant to live, and everyone in your household included." They went on to spell out in detail the story of the Master. The entire family got in on this part. They never did get to go to bed that night. The jailer made them feel at home, dressed their wounds, and then, he couldn't wait till morning, was baptized, he and everyone in his family. There in his home, he had food set out for a festive meal. It was a night to remember. He and his entire family had put their trust in God. At daybreak, the court judges sent officers with instructions, "Release the men." The jailer gave Paul the message. "The judges sent word that you're free to go on your way. Congratulations, go in peace." But Paul wouldn't budge. He told the officers, "They beat us up in public and threw us in jail, Roman citizens in good standing. And now they want us to get out of the way, on the sly without anyone knowing? Nothing doing. If they want us out of here, let them come themselves and lead us out in broad daylight." When the officers reported this, the judges panicked. They had no idea that Paul and Silas were Roman citizens. They hurried over and apologized, personally escorted them from the jail, and then asked them if they wouldn't please leave the city. Walking out of jail, Paul and Silas went straight to Lydia's house, saw their friends again, encouraged them in faith, and only then went on their way. If you'll write this down, peace is something that has to be given away. Peace is something that has to be given away. It can't be taken from you. What we have seen in the news recently and the election season that we've just come through is just a bit of what we have all been experiencing as far as uncertainty goes, and just coming through a year that has been unprecedented with all of the shifts and changes that we have all had to make. And I certainly understand why that would steal your sense of peace. But I want you to write this down and remember that peace is something that has to be given away. You have to give your peace away. It is not something that can be taken from you. And so every time you start to enter into worry, thinking about the future, or someone does something to you that was unexpected, or your candidate doesn't win, or you feel like someone is being accused unfairly, you got to realize, you have to stop and understand that if you're not careful with that action, you will give your peace away as you try to be God and act or behave in a way that would say you can control everything that happens to you and everyone else. What I think we will see in this story, and it's so important for today, looking at just even the politics back then, 2,000 years ago, peace, your sense of being okay with what's going on, your sense of trust in who the Lord is and that he's working all things together for good. Peace, the idea that God is having life work for you, not to you. Life is happening for you, not to you, is something, peace is something that has to be given away. You are the one that will always give your peace away. It cannot be taken. As we have come through this past week where we lost a young person not knowing that it would happen as quick and unexpectedly as it happened. It's amazing to watch a family go through something like this and maintain their peace, to show you that it's possible, that you can't prevent everything and that there is a lot that you will experience that is unexpected, but your peace is a choice. When you lose your peace and you're anxious or you're fearful because of that business deal, because of something that jumped on you and you did not expect it, that huge bill that you get in the mail, that person that abandoned you, the person that makes the poor choice, the child or grandchild that makes the poor choice, something that goes in an opposite direction with your health, all of those things are opportunities to place your trust and your sense of peace in the Lord, or to give your peace away. And we give our peace away when we believe, intentionally or unintentionally, that whatever we're up against is somehow bigger, more knowledgeable, stronger, more powerful than the Lord. And so peace is something that has to be given away. It can't be taken from you. And this is helpful for me when I go through difficult seasons to just remind myself that I cannot control what I go up against or what comes into my life, but I can control whether or not I shift my sense of everything being okay to that situation, or I keep the Lord as the Lord and let him be the Lord of that situation. I lose my peace when I become the Lord or God of any given situation. I know that I have shifted my sense of lordship in life when my peace goes. Let me give you a couple just things that hopefully help reinforce this idea of peace is something that has to be given away. It cannot be taken from you. A lot can be taken from you. Your peace cannot be taken from you. It has to be given away. A little equation for you. Pain minus peace is a problem. As you go to follow the Lord and allow him to develop you and grow your faith, right? Believing and trusting in what is not seen. Pain minus peace is a problem. But when you can keep your peace while you experience pain, it is going to help you progress, or it's going to help you grow in your relationship and your trust with the Lord. Pain, so we're in this series talking about unlearn. What you might need to unlearn is that pain is a problem. Pain is not a problem. Pain is a gift, as long as peace comes with it. The Lord allows us to experience pain and opportunities to put our trust in only him versus our own intellect or our own resources as a gift to you. And we're told that your faith is the most precious thing to God. Not your good looks, not your abilities, not your talents, not your resources, but your faith is what matters most to the Lord. And because it's what matters most, no matter how old you are, the Lord is going to find ways to grow and stretch your faith. I'm always blown away by the Lord's ability to grow and stretch my faith no matter what. He's just so good at finding new ways to expose areas where I have yet to give him my trust or my sense of ownership with any given thing. Never underestimate the Lord's ability to find areas in your life where you still are struggling to trust him. And so the good news is the more we learn to give those things over to the Lord, the less we have to worry about what can be taken from us because they already belong to the Lord. You don't have to worry about losing the things you've already given to the Lord. But you will worry a lot when you hold on to things and you become the Lord of those things. The only things that you will worry about are the things you have yet to surrender. Your health, the future, politics. I still am blown away by this whole thing of politics. I really am. I mean, we're told what the last days are going to look like, and if you believe that, there should be no surprise. And I think if we really are the city on the hill and the light that is supposed to be pointing to God's kingdom, if I were our adversary, I would get you really worked up into American politics, and I would get you to divide yourself from other people based on your disappointment or your differences of opinion, so that you lose your ability to be the light while you talk about American things and political things versus kingdom things that can redeem So we're told that we're going to experience pain, but we need to do it with peace if we want to move forward and grow in our relationship with the Lord. A couple of reminders about peace here. Number one, peace is a person. Peace is a person. We're told in Isaiah 9:6 that Jesus is the Prince of Peace. It's not a concept, it's not an idea, it's a person. Peace is a person. And so when we're talking about going through difficulty and being the light, we're talking about going through pain and maintaining proximity to a person, and the person is Jesus. And so you'll get worked up the further you get away from the Lord and the closer you get to that situation. Right? So you care about our country, and that's good that you care about our country, but you will become more anxious the more you move toward politics and all of the BS that's on Facebook and Instagram and further away from the Lord. I care more about what Jesus is saying about the United States than that conservative or liberal blogger or vlogger. And so should you. Number two, peace is only available in the present moment. If you're living in the future, you're not going to experience peace. Peace is in the present moment. You have to stay present in order to experience peace. Peace is no longer in the past. You can make peace with the past, but peace is no longer in the past, and it is yet to be in the future because the future to you has not come. And so you will always compromise and give over your sense of peace when you start to live in the future. The moment that you have right now that God expects you to give to Him and to steward is the present moment. Yeah, well, I don't know how I'm going to be able to pay my mortgage. Okay, that has yet to come. You're to trust God with this very moment and to give it to Him, and in giving it to Him, you make yourself the most likely to receive or to see or to hear what He has for you in this present moment. Tomorrow is just another one of today's present moments. Right? Today is yesterday's tomorrow. And if you're not careful, you will spend your whole life in tomorrow and forfeit today, which actually has the most potential to shape tomorrow. It's being present. So number one, peace is a person. Number two, you have to be present. You will only lose your peace when you enter the future. When today is the day that the Lord has made and He wants you to live in it. Number three, peace has to be pursued. That we're told that we are to pursue peace. That it's going to have to be an active fight for peace. That one of the things that should define people that call themselves Christians or that know Jesus are people that have peace in their life. They're not anxious and worried all the time and talking about the latest news or the latest gossip or what could be going wrong or the latest conspiracy theory. Like, come on, for heaven's sakes. Who in the world do you know? Peace is a person, and if you know the Prince of Peace, are you kidding me? You're telling me you know the God of the universe. You know the God of the universe, and you're all upset. You're all worked up. You know the God of the universe. Are you kidding me? Quit putting your stuff all over the place like you're all worried about the world coming to an end. The world will come to an end eventually, but last time I checked, you're the one that told me you know and talk to the God of the universe. Why are you so upset? You might be surprised. Nothing is going to surprise the Lord. The Lord already knows all of this stuff. And what it tells me is if you're anxious and you've shipped or FedExed your peace into the future, it tells me you don't know Him the way you say you know Him. He is the God of peace. He comforts us. We're told what happens already in advance. I think of a picture that I saw recently, and it's just the idea that like a lion doesn't really get worked up over a sheep's opinion. Just not too worried about it. And like we are the ones that are supposed to know the Lord. We're the ones that are talking with the Lord. Why are we worked up? And if I'm the Lord and I'm stable and I'm light and I'm love, like all of this stuff that we've been experiencing for a long time is probably really good. The more darkness, the brighter the light. And so this is our opportunity to have peace and to shine and not to be so worried. So when we get into that quiz about all of those questions, like, Lord's not surprised. God's not surprised by any of this. The Lord saw this a long time ago, and he's invited us to know him. And like, you're to be known for your light and your love and your sense of peace. Not what you know or don't know, it's who you know. Peace is a person. There should be a noticeable, tangible difference between you and the people that do not know the Prince of Peace. Why are you so worked up? Oh, did you hear all those stolen votes? It's amazing. Somehow, some way, after all of these years of good theology in church, what no one ever told me was that someone was going to outsmart the Lord and sneak 80,000 votes into the state of Georgia or Minnesota. It just blows my mind how these people got around the Lord. It just absolutely blows my mind. God's person's not on the throne. Bunch of smart liberals just outsmarting God. It's ridiculous. God got caught off guard. It's amazing. Now you should worry, because all of a sudden human beings for the first time ever are outsmarting God, and you're flipping your lid. Peace is something that has to be given away. Every time you get anxious and are worried, it's because you made a decision to make something bigger than the Lord. Let's look at it in the passage, just what peace is and what it's not. What peace is and what it's not from the passage, Acts 16 through 40. Peace is psychic friendly. Here is this young woman who has a gift to hear spiritual things. It should be used for the Lord's glory and to bring people to the light. And instead, she's using her gift to make money. She was owned. She was a slave. And she was used to make money for other people, for profit. And she's following Paul and Silas around. And for whatever reason, Paul and Silas do not choose for a number of days to help her out. And it's not until she keeps going and saying, these guys are from God, they're here to show you the way of salvation, that eventually Paul says, come out of her. He recognizes that there is a spiritual force that has grabbed a hold of her that she needs to be set free from so that she can be free and live her life the way God intended. What I love about this is Paul, in his sense of peace, which is his proximity to a person, was not intimidated by people using God-oriented things the wrong way. Paul was not going to allow that to stop him or keep him from being a part of her freedom. Peace is a person, and it's not intimidated by the spiritual realm. You know, if we're not careful, being the light and being the city that is supposed to be on the hill that everyone can see, that was the idea in those days. If you're a city on a hill, they would build cities on a hill so you could see them from a distance. Jesus said that you and I are the cities on a hill, that we're the light, that we are the ones that people are supposed to look at and say, that's what God looks like on earth. This is what it looks like to be in relationship with the living God. If that's the case, it is our responsibility to properly manage the difference between people and their shortcomings. It's our responsibility. And what we have to do a better job of is not separate ourselves from people because of their shortcomings, but instead be close enough to the Lord in proximity that we can be used to help them be set free from any shortcoming that would keep them from the life that God has for them. People are not the problem. It's a distance from behaving like the Lord that is a problem. And when you choose to make their distance or their shortcoming the problem, you are practicing the same thing by making the shortcoming the problem and moving away versus moving toward. No one said you had to marry them. No one said you had to be best friends. It's just the point that peace moves toward people and is not intimidated by their shortcomings. Quit being afraid of people's shortcomings. That is a shortcoming. We worship sin in the church by making it bigger than God. Last time I checked, Paul said that when sin abounds, grace abounds that much more. We act almost as if sin is a virus that we are going to catch if we're not careful. And we are so afraid of it, we quit being free. And the greatest of all sins or shortcomings is living a life in bondage out of fear and not being free so other people can see and experience the freedom of Jesus that is being walked out by you. More than any shortcoming in your life, you have been called and Jesus paid the price for you to walk and be free, not bound. No one is going to give you a badge in heaven because of how afraid you were of walking in sin. Number 2, it's prison safe. Peace is prison safe, right? If peace is something that cannot be taken from you and it has to be given away. I love how Paul and Silas are put in prison after being beaten unfairly and they still maintained their peace. You probably heard too that like you can measure where someone is at by what it takes to stop them. If we applied that to this passage, like I would just ask you the question, like, what does it take to take your peace? What puts you in a bad mood? What gets you worried? What gets you all anxious? And that will kind of show you like the size of your God. The size of the battle that it takes to strip your peace and get you gossiping and running your mouth about somebody else and their shortcomings or their sin or how bad life is and blah, probably is a reflection of how big your God is. And last time I checked, like Paul and Silas are in prison and they are singing a robust hymn, a song out of gratefulness and thankfulness to the Lord because they knew what was going to happen. And I found that when you know the Lord and you stay close to the Lord in proximity, peace is a person, when you stay close to the Lord, you can be in prison unjustly, beaten and hurting and still singing versus complaining. And that is what it looks like to be the light in this dark world. There is absolutely no justification in light of the Lord dying on your behalf to give your peace away to someone or something else. Peace is not something that can be taken from you. It has to be given away. When I'm upset about another person's actions and how they went around my back and tried to undermine me, I can very easily place the energy of that moment in their poor behavior or the faithfulness of God and Him being my provider and my protector. That's what it looks like to maintain your peace. They might have surprised or disappointed you, but they did not surprise the Lord. He never sleeps. He never slumbers. Peace is prison safe. I remember when I went to jail. After a couple hours of praying, Lord, get me out of this. And the Lord said nothing to me in return. After a couple hours, I can remember the Lord saying, just shut up and embrace the moment. I have things for you to learn. Peace is prison safe. Like, when you go to jail, if you've been there, you know that they search you for everything. And they take everything from you. And you become a number. But they can't take your peace. Peace is something that has to be given away. No one can take your peace. And here are Paul and Silas. I love it. They're arrested because they're disturbing the peace. And they're put in jail. And they maintain their peace. And what's really interesting here is that the politicians who locked them up finally say, you guys just need to get out of here. There's something bigger about you that we don't want to mess with. Your power is going to disturb our power. Go in peace. You can't survive days like the days that we're living in if you cannot maintain your peace. It doesn't matter where you go, what you're up against, what their power is, how strong they are, what they do to you. Peace is something that has to be given away. It can't be taken from you. When Paul and Silas have been treated unfairly, they've been beaten, and now they're in the midnight hour, I would have a temptation. I would be tempted to shut down and feel bad for myself and embrace some sort of narrative how I did not deserve it, and I can't believe God would let me go through this. And yet Paul and Silas knew that the most powerful thing they could do is maintain their peace, and if they maintained their peace, they would give God an opportunity to show up. And what happens? God shows up. They maintain their peace, which is proximity to a person. The person is Jesus. And because they maintain their proximity to a person, Jesus shakes the earth and all the doors open and these big clunky chains fall off of them. And here's what's amazing. The peace is so thick and strong because now God is tangible in the room. They decide to stay. You know what I would have done? Boom, I'm gone. I'm out of here. Lord, you delivered me. You opened the gates. You got rid of my chains. I'm out. But yet, because God was still there in the moment, they doubled down on the peace that God already demonstrated by opening those doors and breaking those chains. And he says to the security guard that deserved to be terminated, don't take your life. We're here. And see, what happened was Paul was so close to the Lord. Paul and Silas were so close to the Lord, they started to live out the Lord's desires. And the Lord's desires, even being seen with the girl who was a psychic, who had been a slave to someone else, they made people the priority, because that is what happens when you maintain proximity to the person known as peace. People always become the priority. We're not getting out of here. We're staying here. Don't take your life. And the security guard goes and throws this huge feast and banquet because of the peace that Paul and Silas demonstrated in the midst of the impossible. What does this teach us? Come on now, what does it teach us? It teaches us, if we will maintain proximity to the person, if we will maintain proximity to peace, anything is possible in the presence of the impossible. You know why a lot of us don't see miracles? You know why a lot of us don't see John chapter 10, verse 10, like the abundant life that God promised coming to fruition in our life, or Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20, all of these things that are better than what we could ever ask or think. You know why we don't see it? Because we get in difficult situations and we give our power, which is our peace, to the situation. And when we give our peace to the situation, we limit God's ability to show up and work, because we stepped away and put all of our attention and our focus on the problem versus the Prince of Peace, which is the person Jesus. And so Paul and Silas stay close to the person. Paul and Silas stay close to peace, and this is what happens. So number one, peace is psychic friendly. It's not intimidated by people or their shortcomings. Number two, peace is prison safe. It can go with you anywhere. There's not a place that you will ever find yourself that peace will not go with you, which means you get to keep it unless you give it away. Peace is in your power to keep it or to give it away. And last but not least, peace is politically intimidating. Right? Politics have to do with the idea of power and who's in control. But Psalm chapter 2 tells us the Lord is in control. And when the rulers of the world gather together to try to figure out how they're going to overthrow the Lord's plan for the world, God just laughs. It's just kind of funny. I remember when my boys were young that we would play football in our living room. And I couldn't help. I would always get to the point where I was just laughing uncontrollably because they thought that, being as small as they were going to hit me hard in the legs and just take me down and keep me down, and they would keep me from dragging this ball across our makeshift goal line. They had no chance. They had no chance, and it was so funny. I just laughed at their attempts to try to hold me down and to keep me back because I was 10 times their weight, probably more. And yet I would just laugh because of how impossible it was going to be for those little guys to stop their big fat dad. And this is what Psalm chapter 2 paints when it comes to the rulers of the world gathering together to overthrow God's plan for how this whole thing comes to an end. And if God laughs at people's attempts to overthrow his power, and you belong to the Lord probably expects you to laugh at people's attempt to overthrow his plan for the world and to overthrow his plan for your life. The greatest chance that someone has to interrupt God's plan for your life is when you give them the power to do so by giving them your sense of peace. I don't care who they are, how much power they have, they cannot steal your peace, which is a person known as Jesus, whom has all of the power, because Colossians 1 tells us that everything was made by him, for him, through him, to him, and by him, all things are held together. It's politically intimidating. Peace is politically intimidating. So, if I were our adversary and I wanted to try to stop as many of God's plan for people's lives, I would try to get them to believe that the power rests somewhere else other than in proximity to Jesus, and for them to put their hope in politics or certain people in order to take their power that they have to put in Jesus and their focus that they have to put in Jesus and stay in proximity to Jesus into other people, so that they would lose their power and therefore their ability to maintain walking side by side with the Lord as they walk out his plan for their life. Relax is all I'm telling you. Maintain a sense of proximity to the Lord. Peace, it's psychic friendly. It's not intimidated by people's shortcomings. It's prison safe. It will go with you absolutely anywhere as long as you don't give it away. And it is politically intimidating, which means it might get you in trouble at first as you don't buckle to the power that exists, the limiting power that's really just a facade here on earth. When you don't buckle and give your peace to a political agenda and yet you keep it, those politicians eventually cater to it because they are power hungry and they want what they cannot control. And I'm not just saying elected officials. I don't know if I've said this, but I'll say it one more time. Peace is something that has to be given away. It can't be taken from you. I'm going to pray really quick. We're going to take 2 or 3 minutes just to ask ourselves that question. Lord, what are you saying to me in light of what's been said? Just a friendly reminder, I'm not here to think for you. I'm here to tell you what I feel like the Lord has said to me. It is your responsibility to own your own spiritual journey and your relationship with Jesus. If there's any temptation for you to be frustrated with me, stop. You're wasting your time. Instead, just take that energy and ask the Lord, Lord, what are you saying to me in light of what's been said today? Then we're going to close out with a couple of announcements, and then we'll answer some questions when we move into the deeper breakout. Let's ask our question. Lord, what are you saying to me in light of what's been said?
enough reflecting. Sorry about that. Okay, we're going to go through these announcements pretty quick because we're running a little bit behind and I have to pee. January initiatives. They are still available for you to sign up. The Women's Bible Study, they're going through a book. Beth, what book is it? Lisa Turkhurst. I Am. Okay. Okay. Just look up Lisa Turkhurst. It's spelled weird, Lysa. So that's the book that they're going through together. Hoops, Monday night they play basketball, except there's no basketball tomorrow night because there's a football game or something on. So no basketball tomorrow night. And then, I like making Ohio State fans mad. And then the wine tasting experience is also still, there are still openings for you to sign up for that. So those are the initiatives. You can sign up at that website on the bottom of the screen. Prayer night, we are still joining for prayer nights here Wednesday nights, 7 o'clock in this room. If you need childcare, that's available for kids 5 and under, and then your older kids are welcome to join us. Giving statements, it is that time of year. So those of you who do your taxes, giving statements are going to be sent out via email this week. And so if you get towards the end of the week and you realize you didn't receive yours, just send an email to info@citychurchdayton.com. Or you can be the person that's emailing us at the end of March asking for yours. We don't judge, but there are definitely those people. Giving statements, they're sent out this week, and then if you would like to continue giving, we love it, appreciate it, need it. You can go to our website, you can text this number, or if you're here in-house, there is the black bucket by the door that you can give your tithes and offerings. Okay, so if you're here with us, we're going to head into our breakouts. 2021 thing at a time, they are talking about budgeting this week, making a monthly budget and tackling debt. Whew, in 20 minutes, so that could be really helpful. That's going to be out by where you got your coffee in the cafe area. If you want to stay in here, we're going to continue talking about the message that Charlie just preached. We'll take your questions. And then out in the core values room, they are going to be going through stories 37 and 38 in the message 100, which is out of Isaiah. So take a few minutes, head to the breakout of your choice. I'm going to go pee, and then we'll start around 10:30 with the breakouts. Have a good morning. Hello, thank you so much for joining us this morning and for participating in our conversation with your comments and your questions. As always, we would love it if you would share the link to today's message. If you need anything, you want to know more about who we are, you can visit our website at citychurchdayton.com or send us an email to info@citychurchdayton.com. Have a great week.